Wait, imagine you're in your house, right? You're in your house sleeping. Your kids are in another room. You and your husband, you and your wife are in another room. And the building starts to shake. It's an earthquake. The building was not able to withstand that earthquake and fell down, right? Now, can you imagine the fear? Can you imagine the pain that would be there if something was to happen to your family within an earthquake like that, where you're inside the building and the building starts to shake? That's what we'll be discussing today. So hi guys, I'm AJAWI. Welcome to another episode of AJAWI TV, where we discuss construction and architectural related topics. Let's get into this video. Alright guys, so before we start this video, this is where I would like for you to click the like, click the share, right? Click the subscribe button, click the notification bell so that you are informed when I post another video just like this one. Alright, so go on ahead and do that. And for those that are a part of the Patreon group, those that are donating to the channel to help me prepare, create videos just like this one, by helping me to buy better equipment, because I'm actually doing this video on a phone, right? So I want to say thank you so far. As you can see, there's better lighting, so thanks to those that actually donated, that helped me to purchase lights. As I go along, you know, I'll get better camera. So that's what I wanted to say to you guys. Thank you for that. All right, so let's dive into this video. Right, let's dive into this video. Somebody recently asked me, right, why do I need an architect? Why do I need an engineer? Why do I need a technologist? Why do I need a draftsman? Who is an architect? Who is an engineer? Who is an architectural technologist? And who is a draftsman? They basically wanted to know why they need to utilize these persons or any of them while they're doing their building preparation, or wait, I say pre-construction preparation, right? So I decided to do this video simply because I want to inform you guys about these persons. All right, so the architect, right? The person asks, why do I need an architect, or who is an architect? This is it. An architect is somebody who is a licensed professional, right? Who actually is trained in the art of design, right? They design your building to look a certain way, to feel a certain way, to act a certain way, basically, right? So basically, the architect is the person that you go to design your home, right? So you might be asking, or the person asked, so how may I pay the architect? Because, you know, say, kind of expensive, you know. Not all architects are as expensive as you may think. What really determines the cost of your design or drawing is really the size of the building, right? Exactly what it is that you really want. Mark you, I am not saying that to get an architect is cheap. I'm just saying maybe sometimes it's really the size of the structure that you want, and your budget may not be able to meet that, right? And besides, not every architect is expensive or is as expensive as you may think. All right. Architects really design pretty much anything they want to design or want to go into, they will, design. um, Except where it is like structural engineering things, and that's where we lead into the engineer. All right, so you know why you need an architect. So the architects will prepare your design. Whether, and architects don't necessarily design houses alone, right? Architects can design a chair, they can do interiors, they can do, say, parks, they can do what else? They can work with forestry, so they, work in preserving the environment. They can do planning. There's a lot of things that architects do, right? But they mainly, well, architects really focus on the bigger stuff. You have some architects that focus on bigger stuff, some architects that focus on residential stuff, some architects that really do concepts. There's some architects that, so there's a wide variety of things that you can do as an architect, right? Now this is just my opinion based on what I am taught in architecture school, because I am an architectural student, right? Now, before I go on, the architect is actually regulated, right? So there's the Architect Registration Board and the JIA, which is Jamaica Institute of Architects. So they are really regulated or governed by that organization, right? All right. So now that we have the architect, who is the architectural technologist? All right. The architectural technologist is somebody like myself who is, say, I studied building technology and I am also studying architecture, right? So the architectural technologist is a level up from the draftsman. Now, what can the architectural technologist do, or what can they take on, right? Within Jamaica, there is no regulatory body in Jamaica, right? There's none that I know of in Jamaica. However, there are international regulatory bodies that you can join, right? So it depends on what you really want. Now, what can the architectural technologists really do? The architectural technologists really go for smaller projects, right? So for residential purposes or residential developments, the architectural technologists would really take on those type of projects up to 3,500 square feet without the need for an architect, a registered architect. The architectural technologists can do up to that based on the Parish Council Act, right, in Jamaica. So they are really classified under a particular group that's called building practitioners in Jamaica. So if it is that you're doing your building application, you'll see architect, engineer, or building practitioner, right, on the form. So you can select that or tick that area that says building practitioner. And what basically happens is that the building practitioner can do some amount of design work, can do some amount of submittal to the council, but they cannot go over that 3,500 square feet without the intervention of an architect, right? So if it is that he wants to go over that, then he would have to have an architect on his team, or he would have to collaborate with an architect, or the architect would have to oversee that project in order for him to be doing such a size project, right? The draftsman. Did I go to the engineer? No. All right, I'm gonna save the engineer for last. But the draftsman. Who is the draftsman? No. Before I get to that, very important. In addition to the technologists studying architecture, I think you have to study at least a three-year diploma in order to be considered as an architectural technologist, right? So you have to have at least a 3-year diploma. If you want to go get regulated internationally, you have to have at least a 3-year diploma. And there are places in Canada, there are places in the UK where you can actually apply and get registered as an architectural technologist. There are different tiers to that, right? So you have architectural technician or draftsman, architectural technologist, and then you have chartered architectural technologist. So that's a field in and of itself, and they really focus on the technology behind architecture, right? So let's not get into that too much. What I want you to focus on is that the architectural technologists do buildings or residential buildings up to a certain size, right? You would not go to an architectural technologist to design, like, say, a warehouse or a high-rise building or office building where you have public and multiple things going on. A hospital, that's in Jamaica, that is. The architectural technology should be working under the architect if it goes over a certain size, whereas if it is that the person is going to be working on sizes over that, he would have to become a chartered architectural technologist, and that is a protected title, right? So you cannot really utilize that title as in chartered architectural technologist, or you run into problems. Same thing as an architect. You cannot utilize the term architect, or you cannot say that you're an architect, because you would be breaking the law. So what I tell most of my clients are people that talk to me and they say, hey, the architect is doing this and this is what, and when I look at the drawing, I'm saying this is not an architect. The architect cannot design this and give to you, right? This is what you can do, or this is what I want you to do for me as a returning resident. When you go to somebody to do a drawing for you, ask them, are you a registered architect? Right? If you ask them this, they have to answer truthfully. If they don't, then they are breaking the law, right? So if you go to the person and say, hey, are you a registered architect? They have to say either yes they are or no they're not. If they answer and say, boy, yes I am, but wait, then you know that that's not an architect. If they answer and say yes and there's a problem and you find out that, hey, this person is not actually a registered architect, you can go to the architect registration board and say to them, hey, this person said that they are an architect and they did my job and I'm not happy with it, and then they would be in some problem. So that's one way for you to protect yourself as a returning resident. Ask if the person is an architect. Anybody that calls me and asks me, hey, are you an architect? I will always say no, I am not an architect, right? I want to become an architect sometime in the future, but I'm not an architect. I'm an architectural technologist, right? And I work with or alongside an architect. So I partner with an architect in order to do certain projects. If the project is of a certain size, then I can do it on my own, period. So that is me being absolutely honest and straightforward with the person. If the person decides that, hey, they're going to do business with me, fine. If not, that's okay as well. At least I'm honest with the person and I am able to give them the information they need. Alright? So that's one way, as a returning resident, I want you to protect yourself. Alright? Now, the draftsman. Draftsman. A draftsman can be anybody who learned to use AutoCAD. Period. That's it. They don't need to be doing any 3-year course minimum, as the architectural technologist would need to be. The draftsman, all the draftsman does is draw. You get instruction from the architect or the architectural technologist, and him just put it on paper. There isn't much thought behind it. For example, I went to a house. In kind of rural St. Andrew. It's close to Kingston though. When I went to the house, there's a nice little stream at the bottom of the hill, right? The hillside has bamboo across it. So when you look out through a window, you're looking at bamboo trees swaying in the wind, right? The breeze that is coming from that area, so nice, so cool, right? And as the wind passed through the bamboo, they would make noise, like kind of like a soothing voice, basically, right? Kind of like it's singing. So as the bamboo, as the wind goes through the bamboo, they would knock against each other, and it kind of swaying and stuff like that. And then the river down at the bottom of the hill, it's just trickling, and it has this nice sound, right? It has a nice sound. The hillside, goes down into it. It's a little bit steep, but not that steep. There are a lot of fruit trees outside, and it's just beautiful, and it's really cool. I want you to keep all of what I just said in mind. The building that is on the property does not take use of none of that. When you go into the building, you're hot. There is no balcony. The building is facing the other direction towards the road that has a lot of noise. The openings on the building does not make use of none of that breeze. So in the nights, it's very hot. And if you step outside, you're just so cool, right? You're very cool. The nice little stream that's down at the bottom of the hill, that's making that nice trickling sound where you could have used during the night to get a really good night's sleep. The man just turn the building and face away from that and block it off and all of that. Why am I telling you all of this? An architect or an architectural technologist, somebody who is trained in architecture but is not yet an architect, would have looked at that situation and say, hey, Jano, this would make a really good focal point for the building. I could utilize all that breeze and that dancing bamboo tree or bamboo leaves. The architect or the architectural technologist would consider these things, right? Now, the person said that they had a drawing done. That drawing was done by a draftsman. Why? Because the homeowner just said to them, say, hey, I want to build this is how I want a room here, and the person can draw. He might come out of high school. Even if you can do TD, you can be a draftsman, right? That's just it. There's no real prerequisite to you being a draftsman. The person can do a 1-year course in AutoCAD and a little short course, and then say them a draftsman. That's the difference. The architectural technologist, however, has to do minimum 3 years in building technology, right? And then he's now training, in architecture, right? All right. So now that you understand the architect, the architectural technologist, and the draftsman, I want to talk to you about engineers. No, I cannot stress it enough. Why do I stress engineers are utilizing engineers? And why do I, as a technologist, ensure that every single one of my projects I have an engineer? Here's the thing. A building, concrete is very heavy. And the moment it starts to shake in certain ways, it becomes brittle, right? Unless you have certain additives to the concrete. Now we're talking about typical Jamaicans. I'm expecting you to be a regular Jamaican, right? You may have money or not, that's not important. I'm talking to you as a regular Jamaican. You are not going to be putting admixtures into your concrete to ensure that the elasticity of it is, greater, and you're putting different types of admix in it to ensure that if the concrete break, it's not brittle and all of that. I don't expect you to be doing that. I expect you to be just, regular concrete. When concrete is good in compression but poor in tension. Tension meaning that when it flex, if it move apart, it's poor in that. But if you're pushing concrete together, the crushing power, it's strong in that, right? Now I'm gonna show you a building. This is the building. Now imagine you're in a building like this and it's swaying like that, right? From side to side. This is the importance of having your engineer. When an earthquake comes, an earthquake moves your building laterally, like this. It's like you take up the building and it starts shaking like that, right? That's what an earthquake does. That's why you need the engineer as part of your project. Now, I advocate for regular Jamaicans to use engineers, and that is why I have an engineer that I work with on my team as well, right? I'm going to show you another video just to drive the point home, right? What I'm trying to get you to understand is that the engineer, really, his job is to ensure that the building can withstand loads, or it can stand up. It's like God was a good engineer, God is the best engineer ever. You know why? And he's the best architect. Look at it this way. God designed some beautiful women on the earth. Beautiful. But if he wasn't thinking about engineering, then he would not have created the skeleton and the muscle to hold up the body. The engineering behind your body is really your muscles and your skeletal structure, right? That's the best way that I can explain it. If you take away your bones from out of your body, you can't stand up, right? You can't stand up, period. That's just it. You can't stand. Why is this important? Would you want God to exclude him engineering side of him and say, you know what, I don't need the engineering aspect and just throw it out the door? Or, you see what I'm getting at? You need the engineer as well, because the engineer is the one that really helps the building to stand. Alright, so I'm gonna show you another video now, and I want to thank the guys that actually allowed me to utilize these videos. I actually asked for permission to use these videos in this video, right, as a review. So I'm gonna share their link to their page in this video. All right, so let's look at the next video now. All right, so this is a building that students at a university, it's a masonry building at a university, and that's actually a shake table. It simulates earthquakes, right? And as you can see, what it's really doing is moving the building back and forth like this, right? To give an idea, or to give the impression that the building is under an earthquake. Now, if you notice, there's a door jamb, there's a window jamb. Now, what that is simulating in this case, the top of the window there is really simulating we call it the lintel, right? But let's just take it for what it is now. Door jamb, concrete structure, right? If you decide that you're not going to use an engineer, none at all, this is what's going to happen to your building. And this is why it is very important that your architect and your engineer work together, right? And even if it is that you're not you cannot afford the most expensive engineer. At least have somebody that will, be considerate of you when you're doing your engineering drawing or your architect. So speak to your architect and ensure that, encourage him. Well, maybe for some size buildings you don't necessarily use the engineer, but for me personally, I use engineers. So as you can see, they're putting the building under some amount of shaking, right? You see that? Look at what's happening there. As the building is moved back and forth, right? The building is falling apart. That is what happens when you don't have reinforcement in your building. And who designs these reinforcements? The engineer. So, would you want to be in a building like this, where you and your daughter, your son, your nephew, your niece, your family, your mother is in the building and this is happening to the building? I don't think so. Because you alright, look there. That's alright. Shaking now and the building falls apart. That's what's happening within the building. Now, the engineer's job is to design the building so that it doesn't fall down. The engineer will design your building to ensure that the loads are distributed to the ground. That's one thing that he does, right? So the loads coming down, he designs the building to transfer those loads down to the soil. So that's the number one thing that the engineer does, right? Number two, he designs the building against wind load. Imagine you're in an earthquake. You're not in an earthquake, you're in a hurricane and the wind just come blow down your house. The engineer really designed against that, right? We're in a hurricane zone, so it's very important, right? He also designs against earthquake loads. So he designs for the building to react a particular way if it is shake up to a certain magnitude earthquake. There are different design magnitudes earthquakes, right? So he will design the building to react a certain way. Maybe the design magnitude allows for the building to maybe fail but does not fall down on you. Or maybe he designs the building so that if it shakes and it is failing, it gives you enough time once you start seeing the building failing to really exit the building. When I was working with an engineer, right? I was working with an engineer called Barry Brown. And that was a stressing time period because I was just learning. But basically what he said to me is, when he designs a building, right? He design a building for stand up, But him say if it fail, he want the stairs in the building to be the last thing that fails. Why? Because he wants you to be able to exit the building if anything is happening. So he's saying that the staircase is the last thing he wants to fail in the building. So even if the entire building drop down, the staircase must be able to stand up, because he wants to ensure that people are able to exit the building in case of an earthquake. Now here's the thing, most persons who are about to do their home or build their home don't know the importance of the engineer, the architect, or the architectural technologist. Now, if you try to eliminate the engineer, it's not a good thing. If you try to eliminate the architect, not a good thing. If you try to eliminate the architectural technologist, not a good thing. And you decide to, I'm gonna play designer, and I'm going to design my own thing, and I'm going to put a stiffener here, a stiffener there, and I'm going to span it in this direction. And remember, you're basically setting up yourself to kill your entire family. And this is what I'm going to leave you with. A saying that my former boss, God rest his soul, said to me. He asked me this question: what's the difference between an engineer and a doctor? Right? I was like, what am I supposed to mean? He asked me, what's the difference between an engineer and a doctor? I was like, doctor saves lives, so I guess engineer saves life. He said no. He said, when a doctor kills somebody, and kill one person, when an engineer kill people, it's a whole heap of people, because when a building fall down, a whole heap of people dead. Alright? So it is very important that you utilize the engineer, utilize the architect, utilize the architectural technologist. Right? If it is that you cannot afford say the architect, if you cannot afford the architect, right, then try and speak with an architectural technologist, at least that, right, so that you can get the necessary things done. So thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for sharing, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for being a part of the Patreon group. Thanks to those that actually donate to the channel. I want to say thank you, a big thank you to you, because you're helping us grow. Alright, so I'm AJAWI, and I'll see you next time.